Thank you and welcome. We think we've got some better batteries now. Everyone that has a heart should be here. It's the number one killer in the world today. It's actually not heart disease, it's blood vessel disease. Another word is cardiovascular disease. Vascular referring to the blood vessels. It's the number one killer in the world today. So what I'd like to start by looking at is, what is medicine doing to reduce this number one killer? Well, in about the 80s, 90s, they came up with a theory. Notice it's a theory that fat causes heart disease. So they're encouraging everyone to go fat-free or low fat, and telling everyone to get off butter and start eating margarine. I never did it because I had a taste of margarine once and that was enough for me. Has that reduced heart disease? Not at all. But something else has risen, and that is cancer. Because margarine is a toxic fat. In fact, it's one molecular structure short of plastic. It's nasty. Your body knows butter, but it does not know margarine. So is there a problem with butter? Well, the biggest problem is the cows that it comes from. And I was talking to one farmer, and this was in Ireland, and he was a dairy farmer in the 80s, 90s. He said, I can't believe how many antibiotics we used to give those cows. 80% of antibiotics that are made go to animals. But also you've got the cows that are eating grass that was, sprayed with Roundup, DDT. Well, there's a lot of problems today because the toxins always settle in the fat, being fat-soluble toxins. So let's have a look at, so that one didn't work. Everyone over the age of 50 should be taking aspirin. So what are the side effects of aspirin? Because it is a drug. It has three main side effects. It causes stomach bleeds. It's one of the main causes of stomach ulcers. And brain bleeds and eye bleeds. We had a guest, and she was in her early 70s, and I said, you could stop the aspirin if you chose. She said, I could never do that. I said, why not? She said, the doctor said I will die. It's not necessarily so. And why was she on it? She was on it for fear. But at the retreat, she learned a few things. She learned some alternatives. She learnt some things that are more powerful blood thinners, and yet they don't cause you to bleed. And yet if there's any bleeding anywhere in the body, this particular herb will even seal that. What herb am I talking about? The cayenne pepper. That's right. No, well, that hasn't reduced heart disease. And if someone has a stroke or a cardiac arrest, then they're put on a protocol. No matter who they are, no matter what their age is, they're put on a protocol. And what's the protocol? The protocol is blood thinning medication and statin drugs. What are statin drugs? Statin drugs are cholesterol lowering medication. Does that reduce heart disease? No, it doesn't at all. You see, the organ in the body, and we've looked at this organ a few times, is the liver. And the liver makes cholesterol, and it makes cholesterol according to the body's needs. Cholesterol is actually like a Band-Aid in the body. And if anyone has more than one drink of alcohol, it starts to dissolve the membrane around the cells. And so what the body does, it releases cholesterol to try and hold that membrane together. Just one illustration of one of the many roles that cholesterol plays in the human body. It also plays an important role in the brain because it protects the brain cell against damage. As Dr. Malcolm Kendrick said in his book, The Great Cholesterol Con, he said, for the first time, normal levels of a normal, vital body substance is being called a disease. What's that? That's cholesterol. He says in his book, I'm still waiting for the proof. I'm still waiting for the proof that cholesterol causes heart disease. I'm still waiting for the proof that fat causes heart disease. He said, because it is not there. And yet, what have we been told? What does the Bible say in Psalm 146, verse 3? Put not your trust in princes, neither in the Son of Man in whom there is no help. Who are the princes? They're the authorities in the field, because sometimes they get it wrong. No, putting people on statin drugs hasn't helped. What do statin drugs do? They block the pathway in the body that the body uses to make cholesterol. And that's one of the reasons why Alzheimer's dementia has risen, because the brain cells have now lost their protection. So it blocks the pathway in the liver that the liver uses to make cholesterol, but that same pathway that the liver uses to make cholesterol, it also uses to make coenzyme Q10. And what's coenzyme Q10? Coenzyme Q10 is your heart protective enzyme. So someone can go on cholesterol-lowering medication with the hope or belief, because of what they've been told, that it will prevent heart disease, and it can actually increase it because you've now lost your heart protective enzyme, which is coenzyme Q10. What else have they done? This is to reduce heart disease or cardiovascular disease, lowered the levels. What do I mean by that? Lowered the levels. Well, I had the wonderful opportunity of meeting a lady 10 years ago who was 69, and she was a nutritionist. She said, I have the advantage of being schooled in university 40 years ago. She said 40 years ago it was perfectly normal to have a cholesterol level of 300. Got that? So they've lowered the levels. Has that reduced heart disease? No, not at all. In fact, what are we told today? That the cholesterol level should not go above 190. Is that right? If your cholesterol goes below 150, your brain's not going to be working very well, because the brain needs that cholesterol. In fact, the food that has the highest cholesterol levels is breast milk in the first month. And no baby dies of cardiovascular disease. And do you know why breast milk is so high in cholesterol? Because that developing brain cannot develop without those high cholesterol levels. Let's go to the other end of the scale. In the latter years, how many people in aged care facilities have been diagnosed with dementia and they're on the statin drugs? Because the side effect of cholesterol-lowering medication is Alzheimer's, dementia, memory loss, muscle wasting, and they've just added another one, breast cancer. Because as you will see tomorrow, our sex hormones are made from cholesterol. And by the way, if you don't have enough cholesterol, you can't make your vitamin D. And vitamin D is another essential nutrient in the body. When we start interfering with body levels, we're in trouble, because the body runs according to precision balance. I was in Maryland 2 years ago, and I was speaking to a pathologist. She's retired now. She's in her late 70s. She said, I used to do all the testing on cholesterol. So the people would have their cholesterol levels taken, and she would do all the testing. She said, we considered a cholesterol level of 350 perfectly fine. And the Framingham Heart Study, this heart study was set up in the little town of Framingham. In fact, it's been going for nearly 40 years. 30,000 people, some die, a few more come on. And it was set up to prove that cholesterol causes heart disease. Well, it's 40 years later and hasn't proven that yet. But you know what it did show? People with high cholesterol levels don't get Alzheimer's, because our brain is the fattiest organ in the body. The membrane around every cell is 50% fat, but the brain cell is 70% fat. It's the fattiest organ in the body. It loves fat and it needs fat. So what is causing heart disease? And you might say to me, well, Barbara, what are your cholesterol levels? I don't know. I've never had a test and I'm never going to have a test. Why have a test? Everything works. So I'm going to take you through some of the main causes of heart disease, because remember Newton's third law of motion: to every action there's an equal and an opposite reaction. What is causing the number one killer in the world today? And I'm going to explain it through a story. It's a lady from London that came to our retreat. She was only 45 and she'd had a stroke. And she'd had an angiogram, which is dye going into the blood vessels to check the arterial walls. There was no build-up of cholesterol. Yet she had a stroke. And because she had a stroke, they had her on blood-thinning medication, cholesterol-lowering medication, and they had her on blood pressure medication, but she's never had high blood pressure. That's because that's the protocol. That's the protocol. That's what you're given if you have a heart attack. And here's this lady, clear arteries, 40, 45, angiogram shows it's clear, and yet she's put on this. That's why I say you're the doctor. And you might go to the health professional and they'll advise, what can you do with that advice? Whether it be a specialist, whether it be a doctor, whether it be a naturopath, whether it be a nutritionist, what can you do with that advice? You take it or leave it. You might try it, although personally, if it was a drug, I wouldn't even try that. But that's the beauty of natural remedies, is you've got nothing to lose when you try it, because they are not harmful. So I began to investigate with this lady. I was intrigued as to know why she had a stroke. I said, tell me what was happening the week before the stroke. Well, she looked down, she looked a little embarrassed, she looked like she didn't want to tell me. She said, well, I'm the CEO of a big company. She said, I had a deadline to meet, so she said I was working around the clock. So she's in her office 24/7, she was in the office. Was she getting any sunshine? No, no sunshine. Did you know that when sunshine hits the skin, it automatically has an effect to thin the blood and increase movement of the blood? But it also causes a release of something very interesting called nitric oxide. So nitric oxide is vital in the health of our blood vessels because it acts as a vasodilator. What's a vasodilator? A vasodilator opens the blood vessels and causes a better delivery of blood all through the body. Just sunshine touching the skin. She wasn't getting any sunshine. Was she drinking water? No, because she didn't even have time to go to the bathroom. So she thought if she doesn't drink much water, she can stay at her desk longer. She was dehydrated. Sleep? No, there was none of that. She was running on 3 hours sleep a night. No, wasn't having that. Trust in divine power? No, that was gone. Trust in God was gone. Her whole focus was, I've got to make this deadline, I've got to make this deadline. She was maintaining herself, so she thought, on lots of coffee. She was having lots of coffee to keep her awake, and she was having a couple of teaspoons of sugar in the coffee. She was having a few things she shouldn't be having. And I would like to suggest that because her nutrition was out the window, she was just grabbing a bit of fast food from the corner shop every now and then, and that would have increased mucus buildup in her eustachian tubes, making it very difficult to breathe through her nose. So there wasn't much nose breathing. Do you know what happens when you breathe through your nose? It causes a release of nitric oxide. And nitric oxide has a vasodilator effect. Moderation, That was out the window. She wasn't practicing moderation in anything really. Exercise, that was out the window. Yes, every single law was breaking. She was highly stressed with the pressure. She's got to make this deadline. Do you know, sometimes the body stops us, doesn't it? And it was just by the grace of God only that when she had her stroke, that it was the blood vessels in the neck, the carotid arteries that go to the brain, they were becoming very constricted. The blood was getting very thick, and it was by the grace of God that she collapsed just as the workers were coming in for the morning work, and they were able to press the button, and the paramedics were there very, very quickly and basically saved her life. There's no doubt about that. So she came to Misty Mountain, and she heard about the true cause of cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease, vascular is your vascular system. So that's covering cardiac arrest, also covering strokes. So what we need to go to, because it's a blood vessel disease, we need to go to the blood vessel. Knowledge is easy to him that understands, says Proverbs 14 verse 6. I'm going to explain to you this blood vessel. And when you understand the blood vessel, you begin to understand why cardiovascular disease is the number one killer. Lining the artery are endothelium cells. These endothelium cells are delicate little cells. But what's covering the endothelium cells is something fascinating. It's called the glycocalyx. I'll write that up for you. You may never have heard of glycocalyx. The glycocalyx is like little filaments that cover the endothelium cells, and one of their roles is to protect the endothelium cells. These glycocalyx also have an effect to keep the blood thin. These glycocalyx cause a release of nitric oxide. But some things are coming into the bloodstream today that are causing that glycocalyx basically to be destroyed, and that is the high-fat, high-sugar diet. But it's not just any fat. It's the cheap seed oils. You see, when Captain Cook landed on the South Pacific Islands and he was confronted with the most magnificent specimens of humanity he'd ever seen, the men were strong, agile, the women were beautiful, no heart disease, there was no illness. And they were eating coconut oil every meal. But what happened in the Industrial Revolution? They created high heat chemical equipment to be able to extract oil from hard seeds. They're the cheap seed oils, and when those oils get into the bloodstream, they can cause that glycocalyx to flatten, as can the high sugar in the blood. What causes the high glucose, high sugar in the blood? Well, here's a typical diet: cereal and toast for breakfast, sandwiches for lunch, pasta for tea, coffee with 2 teaspoons of sugar, donuts, cakes, cookies. There it is. That's your high carbohydrate, high sugar diet, putting high glucose into the blood, which causes this flattening down of the glycocalyx. And when that protective layer has gone, and we put on top of that people wearing personal care products that have got poisonous chemicals in them, people putting sunscreens on, which is high in poisonous chemicals, people wearing polyester, which is a chemical, nylon, acrylic and polyester, they were created in a chemical laboratory with the Industrial Revolution. I'm not interested in that one. So can you see it's coming in through the skin? Sometimes people are breathing it. We were in an Airbnb about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and as soon as I went in, you could smell the chemical air fresheners. Wow, just about gave me a headache. Yes, there is a time for a mask, although I don't own a mask. I took them, opened all the windows. I carry essential oils with me, wiped the whole area down with essential oils. So you can be also breathing in chemicals. Those chemicals can come in, whether they come in through inhalation, whether they come in through ingestion. And if you're not eating organic food, you are getting some chemicals there. And it can also come in through the skin. Be careful what you're washing your clothes. You might have lovely cotton linen clothes, but if you're washing them in chemicals, unless you rinse the clothes 10 times, and of course most clothes, washing machines rinse about twice, you're getting a little remnant there. So they're everywhere, and like the dripping tap on a stone, they're coming in and they're damaging. They're damaging the arterial walls. Now, what's supposed to happen if the glycocalyx is working well, but it's damaged in a couple of areas and we've just got damage happening here? It's exactly the same as what happens when you cut your hand. If your hand is cut, as Ricky shown you, he's very proud of his cut on his hand, especially since it's healed so very quickly with the comfrey cream. But you got blood, haven't you? But it stops bleeding fairly quickly. Why? Because it starts to clot. The platelets and the red blood cells starts to clump together and fibrin comes in, causing a clot. Stops this bleeding. That's exactly the same process that happens here. It's the same process. So what happens is platelets clump together, red blood cells clump together, some fibrinogen, and so then we've got some clots happening there now. But if the damage continues, can see what's happening? The clots are building up. They're building up. Especially when the chemicals don't stop, especially when the high glucose, high sugar, high refined carbohydrates doesn't stop. Many are sick through ignorance, not realising that what they're doing is harming their body so much. And the cheap seed oils, don't touch them. They are so dangerous to the body. But what's also happening is we've got our main arteries coming down to smaller capillaries and then smaller and smaller. And when we get down to our feet, some of those capillaries are smaller than a strand of hair. If I took one strand of hair, I don't think you'd even be able to see it. And they are lined with endothelium cells, and the glycocalyx does cover them. But when you've got this high sugar diet, high carbohydrate diet, throw a few chemicals in as well, when it gets to those tiny little capillaries and the glycocalyx destroyed, it causes them to rupture. So those tiny little capillaries, they're rupturing. So what's happening now is blood can't get to the extremities. That's why diabetics lose feeling in their feet, because those tiny little capillaries are rupturing. And that's why they have found that high blood pressure and diabetes often goes hand in hand, because when you start to destroy those little capillaries right down in the extremities, you haven't got a dispersion of the blood going easily through, so pressure builds up. There's your high blood pressure. And we've lost the nitric oxide because that's what was being made by the little glycocalyx. What is supposed to happen is if a little damage happens, those glycocalyx are also responsible for helping to build new endothelium cells and dispersing the clot away. So if everything's working well, this system, not only does it protect us by forming a clot over the damaged part, but there's a repair system. But with the high sugar, high carbohydrate diet, and the glycocalyx is being destroyed, and the cheap seed oils come in, and the chemicals that are coming into the body, what's happening is you've got this build-up. Now what happened, and this probably happened maybe in the 50s, they biopsied that plaque and they found fat in it. You know why they found fat in it? Because the membrane around every cell in the body is 50% fat. And the membrane around your red blood cells is 50% fat. And so the blood cells and the platelets that clump together, of course there's going to be an element of fat. And part of that is a cholesterol type fat. And so the theory was produced, cholesterol is causing heart disease. But the theory that I just gave you of the building up of clots, do you know that that first was put forward in the early 1800s? But it was the pharmaceutical company that wanted the cholesterol theory of disease, because they have not made millions or trillions, but billions out of cholesterol-lowering medication. I had a pharmacist attend our program. She said, I'm annoyed. She said, I'm not against drugs. She said, that's my job. That's my job. But she said, recently a circular came around that anyone with a cholesterol level above 190 had to go on cholesterol-lowering medication. She said, I'm annoyed because it's a scam. I'm annoyed it's just a money-making scheme. Because if someone goes on antibiotics, how long are they on it for? A week. If someone goes on cholesterol-lowering medication, how long are they told they're on it for? Life. And this was from the mouth of the farmers, as she said, it's just a money-making scheme. And it is. Lipitor is probably the most popular cholesterol-lowering medication, and that's the pharmaceutical company's star child. Why? Because they've made billions out of that drug. Now that's enough for me not to want to touch that drug. If you are on cholesterol-lowering medication, you can stop it immediately, even if you've been on it for 10 years. But I'm warning you of a side effect. Your memory will return. Your muscles will now become strong. Your mind will become clearer. That is the only side effect. People say to me, but Barbara, what can I take instead of the cholesterol-lowering medication? I said, there's no need to take anything because you need that cholesterol. You need it. And remember, if it's high, you won't get Alzheimer's. But Barbara, who are you? You're not a researcher, you're not a doctor. That's right, I'm not. I act as a journalist. I'm gathering all of this information. And in my book, Sustain Me, I've got a chapter called Love Your Heart with All Your Heart. Let me quickly list the books I quote. The Great Cholesterol Con by Dr. Malcolm Kendrick. The Great Cholesterol Lie by Dr. Dwight Lundell. The Great Cholesterol Deception by Dr. Peter Dingle. The Great Cholesterol Hoax, not sure of that author. The Great Cholesterol Myth by Johnny Bowden. We're running out of names. We're running out of names. Dr. Malcolm Kendrick is a GP who has specialised in cardiovascular health. I have just finished another book that he wrote called The Clot Thickens, where he has investigated heart disease because he said it never made sense to me. And he said the more he investigated, the more he discovered the theory that it's actually thrombic. It's the clots. But why are the clots there? Where's my why? The why should ever be asked. Why are they there? They're there because something has damaged the wall. Well, what has damaged the wall? Many medications do. Many different medications have different effects. Another big one is just dehydration. Another big one is inactivity. The body should be moving. So what I want to take you through is how can you heal that? And can you heal that? If there is that build-up on the arterial wall, can you heal that? You can. You can. It was a few years ago, Dr. Agatha Thrash. Now, she is a medical doctor, and her husband, Dr. Calvin Thrash, they opened a retreat. I think it's in Georgia. It's called Uchee Pines. They're both passed now. If they were both alive, they'd probably be 100. And she tells the story, when she was alive, she'd tell the story of a lady that came to their retreat who was in her 70s, and she'd had an angiogram, and she had 2 arteries that were blocked probably 80%. So what would be 80%? 80% blockage would be about this much. So that's about 20%. 20% the blood's getting through. They did not want to do a bypass on her, and by the way, that is a major operation. I assisted for a bypass when I worked in the operating theatre. They cut your ribs open, hold them open, they cut an artery out of your leg, cut the offending artery out, and then sew that in. Does that fix everything? No, it doesn't, because that artery they've put in the heart, that's not made out as strong tissue, because the arteries in the heart are made out of strong tissue because of the beating of that heart. But by the time the thrust comes down here, it's not as less. It's like the man that rang me up. He said, "Barb, they want to do bypass. What can you do?" I said, "Come to the retreat, Jim." I said, "We'll get you walking, we'll get you drinking more water, we won't serve you any alcohol or caffeine." He said, "Oh, Barb, that's a bit extreme." I said, "I'll tell you what I think's extreme, sawing the chest open." I mean, choose your hard. Life is hard, but I'm so glad we can choose our hard. But back to this elderly woman that came to the retreat. The doctor did not want to do a bypass because of her age, because she'd been an alcoholic for 20 years, so they knew her arterial walls would be somewhat damaged, and she was a smoker. You know, there's about 7,000 chemicals in cigarettes, and they get in and damage the arterial wall. Alcohol is a neurotoxin, it damages the arterial wall. So they knew that her blood vessels probably would not survive if they did the operation. So her family sent her to the retreat. First 24 hours was a bit tough. But the staff were so lovely, they gave her hot foot baths to ease her headache and herbs and juices, and they were so lovely that they eased her through the first 24 hours. Coming to 36 hours, she's starting to feel a little bit better. By 48 hours, she's starting to feel quite good. She started to do the walks, she got used to drinking more water, got used to the food, and on the 3rd day, she opened the drawer next to her bed and there was a Bible. She opened the Bible and she began to read the stories of Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Amen. And she surrendered her life to God. Amen. And she now wanted to look after her body. She asked God to forgive her for really beating up her body. At the end of the week, she said to Agatha Thrash, she said, "Do I have to go home?" And what they did was they found a little room that she could stay in, and she would help a bit with the laundry. I think the next 10 months were the best of her life. One day, she didn't appear, and they went into her room and they found her in bed, and she had died in the night. Agatha did a post-mortem on her and found that an embolism had burst in her brain. I think the arterial walls were so weak from the many years of alcohol. But what Agatha did while she was there, she looked at the main arteries in her heart, they were clear. So in 10 months, they went from this to clear. Now you're not often able to gauge that. Often you can gauge it just by the fact that the person can breathe easier. Because you can imagine when there's that blockage in the arteries, often the person gets breathless because there's not enough blood going through and the blood carries the oxygen. So what cleared the arteries? She started to have sunshine. Remember what sunshine on the skin has a nitric oxide, causes a release of nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator, opens the blood vessels. She started to drink more water. I know that's the best blood thinner because at Misty Mountain I used to do live blood analysis. You get a drop of blood, put it on the slide, put it under the microscope, comes up on the screen, and that's what the blood usually looks like, moving around. But very occasionally, only in about 2% of cases, I would see blood like this. And upon investigation, I'd discover the person hasn't had any water to drink. And sometimes it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They haven't drunk water because they didn't want to have to stop and go to the bathroom because they were travelling. Now, the good news is the next day I can look at their blood and it'll look like that. That's easy fixed. And that's how I know that one of the best blood thinners is actually water. And little by little, drink that water. And the whole salt. When I say whole salt, I'm talking about the mineral salt. Probably the two best that I know, and I'm not saying they're the only ones, is Baja salt and Celtic salt. They contain 82 minerals. So why are we told stop the salt if you've got high blood pressure? Well, let me explain. In seawater, there are 92 minerals. And of those 92 minerals, 30% is sodium and 50% is chloride. We hear a lot about the dangers of sodium, but sodium is actually an essential nutrient in the body. But we don't hear a lot about chloride. If you don't have enough chloride, you can't make your hydrochloric acid. We need the salt. But because they're the first crystals formed, they're scooped up, bleached white, aluminium's put with it. There's your table salt. That's the table salt that is found in your supermarket shelves. It's got 2 minerals. And those 2 minerals cause an imbalance in the body. In fact, if you were to make seawater with this table salt, it's 2 minerals, which is a cup of water to a teaspoon of salt, fill up a fish tank, get fish from the sea and put it into that fish tank, all the fish die. We need salt in its balanced form, which is what this whole salt has. And those whole salts, they have 3 magnesiums. And magnesium is the muscle relaxant. In fact, some of the research is showing that magnesium deficiency increases the risk for cardiovascular disease by 50%. Wow, that's a lot. And when people are eating devitalized food, no greens, the refined salt, they're often magnesium deficient because the stimulants, especially the caffeines, they leach the magnesiums and the calciums out of the body. Highest source of magnesium is dark green leafy vegetables. You see, magnesium is a water-hungry molecule, and that's why the whole salts often are damp, especially in weather like this where it's raining a lot. You'll find that those salts are damp. That's because magnesium is a water-hungry molecule. And that's why when you put the magnesium in your mouth and crunch it, take some water, that magnesium pulls the water inside the cell. It's the quickest way to hydrate a body. The Bible talks about this refined salt, and the Bible talks about it in Matthew chapter 5. Matthew chapter 5, verse 13, Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth. If the salt has lost its savour, wherewith shall it be salted? It is henceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden under foot of men." I love the poeticness of Old English. If the salt has lost its savour, I'd like to suggest that Table salt has lost its savour. It's lost all the other minerals. What does the Bible say it's good for now? Good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden underfoot of men. And I thought of that when I was in Minneapolis a few years ago, and I saw them throwing salt on the roads to melt the snow. And that refined salt, 80% goes to industry. The other 20% goes to our supermarket shelves. And because it's an imbalanced salt, it gets that blood pressure up by interfering with the balance in and out of the cell, causing blood pressure to rise. But the whole salt, that restores the balance. Dr. Jacques de Langry, he wrote a book called Sea Salt's Hidden Power. And the hidden power, of course, is all of those minerals. And if he's passed now, but if he got a patient with high blood pressure, he'd put them on the whole salt. Because he said what it does is it restores balance in and out of the cell. If you're not used to salt and you have high blood pressure, start small. Start very small and ease yourself into it. How much water do we need a day? At least 8 glasses a day. Sleep, here's another 8. 8 hours to work, 8 hours to play, 8 hours to sleep. Remember those hours before midnight? We make sure we don't keep you too late here so that you can get home and hopefully be in bed by 9:30 at the latest, so you can access those hours before midnight. Because we need healing in the lining of our arteries. And it's in those early hours of the night that healing accelerates. Trust in God. Stress can constrict those arteries and contribute to high blood pressure. Stress can contribute to high blood pressure by raising that pressure. So trusting in God, trusting in Him, knowing that He is a solution God and He has a solution to all our problems, can relax. And inhaling through the nose can flip that stress. What do I mean by that? When you breathe in and out through your nose using your abdominal muscles, and our abdominal muscles were designed to aid in the breathing process, you stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system. What's your parasympathetic nervous system? The parasympathetic nervous system is your peaceful, calming nervous system. So breathing through the nose, using your abdominal muscles, they call it the cube. 4 in, hold for 4, 4 out, hold for 4. There's the cube. Try that 10 times and you can stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your calming nervous system. Because high cortisol levels, which are a result of worry, stress, that causes constriction of heart vessels, which is a contributing factor to heart disease. Jesus said in John chapter 14, he said in verse 27, he said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled." Do you know what let means? Let is a choice. You can choose to be troubled or you can choose to relax and let it go. A great piece of advice the Bible gives, which is lots of great advice, is to just love today. Just love the moment, love today, because tomorrow is another day. And when you love the moment, past pain fades and future worries don't seem so troublesome. There are some things that must stop if you want to look after your blood vessels and prevent cardiovascular disease. And I don't think I need to spend too much time on it because we already have. The cheap seed oils, they must stop. The high carbohydrate, high sugar diet, we've got to change that and go to your 3 essential food groups: fibres, proteins and fats. Get those carbohydrates down. There are some things that must stop. Definitely the caffeine. If you're a coffee drinker, don't stop, or you won't be able to come to class tomorrow because you'll have such a bad headache. What you do is you slowly ease off it. If you're used to 3 cups of coffee a day, try 3 half cups, and then 3/4 cups, and then go to maybe 2 half cups. So little by little, ease off it. Because what caffeine does is it causes a crisis response. And whenever there's a crisis response in the body, blood pressure goes up. So often, and I have met people, in fact, we had a doctor to our program, he said, my doctor told me to stop the coffee and my blood pressure would come down, and it did. Also the chemicals. Got to get the chemicals out of the home. It's like the man I told you the story this morning. He said, my wife's just thrown all my clothes out. Hopefully you don't have to throw them all out. But little by little, start going to natural fibre. Little by little, start supporting the cotton. I want to support the cotton industry. I want to support the linen industry. I want to support the wool industry. And I do have my red smart wool leggings on that I got delivered yesterday here. You can Google them and order them, and they're so soft that you would not even think they're wool. It's time to support the local industry. It's time to support the sheep farmers.
What about bamboo?
Bamboo's great. It's not chemicals. Also viscose and rayon, they're made out of wood pulp. So you can put those names and Google it and you can find out what it is. You might find that they say, aha, this wood pulp's been softened with chemicals. It has. But all you have to do is buy it and put it in the clothesline. I'm sure you do get sun here sometimes. Put it out in the sunshine. The sunshine purifies your clothes. Because if you buy cotton, you have to, because cotton is one of the most sprayed crops. But if you wash it and put it in the sun for a day, that will purify and get rid of the chemicals. Get the chemicals out of your laundry cupboard. We stay in a lot of Airbnbs. I open those laundry cupboards. Whoa, I quickly close them. It's just incredible the amount of mixtures that are in there. In my laundry cupboard, there's white vinegar, sodium bicarbonate, and eucalyptus oil, because that makes it smell nice. That's it. And a scrubbing brush. So you'll save a fortune on not having to buy all of those cleaning products, and you can spend more money on your linen and your wool clothes.
For laundry too?
You can get a biodegradable laundry detergent. I know one is Eco. I know even in Dubai you can get Eco. So there are a few biodegradable laundry detergents. So these are all the things that stop anything that can contribute to damage in the arterial wall. Nutrition, we've looked at nutrition a few times. High fibre, lots of fruits and vegetables. We looked at earlier how that's feeding your microbiome. It releases the minerals, and minerals are needed for healing. Protein, the amino acids that break down from protein, they're the building blocks of every cell in the body. So for our body to heal, it must have protein. Fats, go for the good fats, nuts, seeds, coconut oil, olive oil. Moderation in all the good things. And exercise. Exercise strengthens the heart. Exercise gets the blood running through the arterioles, the whole blood system so much easier. And exercise strengthens the heart. We should be exercising every day. You've got to find out what works for you. Whether it be walking, whether it be swimming, whether it be rebounding. Rebounding's an easy one because you can do it in your in your home. Exercise bike is another good one. I find the only way to do it is you make an appointment with yourself. I've got an appointment with myself every morning before breakfast. If you don't do it before breakfast, I'd like to suggest that you'll never do it. So you've got to make an appointment with that every day. But I want to go back to inhale for a moment, because when we inhale through the nose, yes, it purifies the air, yes, it warms the air, yes, it humidifies the air, but it also pressurizes the air, making it perfect for the lungs, but it balances blood gases. What are the blood gases? One of the blood gases is nitric oxide. Another blood gas is carbon dioxide. You can have too much carbon dioxide, but many people, because they're not breathing properly, they don't have enough carbon dioxide. And for oxygen, the most vital element needed for life in every living thing, it needs carbon dioxide to actually get into our bodies. So when we breathe in through our nose into our lungs, in the lungs there are little alveoli. They're like a little bunch of grapes, and over them is a blood capillary network. Now we have 75 trillion cells and 25 trillion red blood cells. So there's your 100 trillion cells in the body. And every red blood cell has on it many hemoglobin. And hemoglobin is the carrier of oxygen. And when you breathe into the lungs, I'll show you, this is the end of every little bronchiole. And these alveoli look like that, and over the alveoli is a blood capillary network. So we breathe in, and those little alveoli fill up with air, and there's a gaseous exchange. 4 molecules of carbon dioxide coming out means 4 molecules of oxygen can be picked up. But if you're breathing out through your mouth, you lose too much carbon dioxide, and you might only have 2 molecules of carbon dioxide on the hemoglobin. Do you know what that means? Only 2 molecules of oxygen can be picked up. Yes, you can have too much carbon dioxide, but you can also have not enough. The carbon dioxide is necessary to pick up the oxygen. The same thing happens at the membrane around the cell. And they have discovered that the muscles that are mostly used in exercise, so if you're a walker or a runner, it will be your quads and it'll be your calf muscles. And they found that those cells in those muscles are getting more oxygen. You know why they're getting more oxygen? Because they're giving off more carbon dioxide. So the more carbon dioxide that comes off, the more oxygen can get in, because 4 molecules of carbon dioxide means 4 molecules of oxygen can get in. So it's a gaseous exchange. Something else very important about carbon dioxide is that it's a vasodilator. And a vasodilator means that it opens the blood vessels all through the body. So nitric oxide is produced when we breathe through our nose. Nitric oxide is produced when the sun hits the skin. Nitric oxide is given off by the little glycocalyx, which, remember, our body was made to prepare, and it will repair when you give it the right conditions. But one more way to make nitric oxide is exercise. Do you know what they found? Because nitric oxide is a component in dynamite, is the men that had angina, heart problems, when they were mixing together the nitric oxide for the dynamite, found that their angina pain was easy because of the nitric oxide. Because nitric oxide has an effect to open the blood vessels. And if you open the blood vessels, that's what a vasodilator is, you've got a better flow of blood all through the body. So exercise is vital for the picking up and release of nitric oxide, but also breathing through the nose, you're getting your nitric oxide. Are you starting to discover that everything we need, we've got? It's just knowing how to access it. What about high blood pressure? High blood pressure can be remedied by remedying the arteries, re-establishing those little tiny, tiny capillaries that are no bigger than a strand of hair, by implementing these basic laws of health. But there is a herb that strengthens the heart. It's called the hawthornberry. The hawthornberry is a heart strengthener. And if the blood pressure's too high, it'll help to bring it down. And if the blood pressure's too low, it'll help to bring it up. Remember Psalm 104 verse 14, God gave herbs for the service of man. The herbs are there to serve you. They work with you. The hawthornberry is very safe. We've known guests that have been on several blood pressure medications and they take the hawthornberry as well, but because they're implementing the lifestyle changes, they can eventually come off the blood pressure medication. Whereas the blood thinning medication and the statin drugs, they can be stopped immediately. No adverse effect that is damaging at all. But the person must ensure that they're drinking adequate water. And the cayenne pepper, oh, I think this is a good colour to write the cayenne in. Cayenne pepper. The book by Jethro Kloss called Back to Eden, he devotes half a page to every herb, 10 pages to cayenne pepper. Quotes one doctor in it that says it's impossible to abuse cayenne pepper. So is there a dose that's too high? No. No. I've known people their nose have been bleeding, they're bruised because they're just on too much warfarin. You could take a bucket of cayenne pepper a day, you will never bruise, and your nose will never bleed. But I don't know anyone that takes that much. And when people say to me, is it safe? I tell you what is not safe. The statin drugs are not safe. The aspirin is not safe, but the cayenne pepper is. I've got a book at home called Lipitor, Thief of Memory. And it was written by Dwayne Graveline. And he's a medical doctor. He's also an astronaut. And I think at the time he was late 40s. He went to have his yearly physical because he's an astronaut, so he has to have a yearly physical. His cholesterol levels were 200. And his doctor said, that's a little high. But as you've just learnt, that is not high at all. So if ever you go and your cholesterol's at 200, 250, and the doctor says, whoa, that's too high, you know what you say? Thank you for your opinion. You might buy Dr. Malcolm Kendrick's book for him, The Clot Thickens, and send it to him. So Dwayne Graveline took the Lipitor. Why did he take the Lipitor? Fear. He doesn't want to die of a heart attack. 6 weeks later, his wife found him out in the garden. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know who he was. He didn't know where he was. They stopped the Lipitor, and within 48 hours, his mind was clear. 10 months later, he went back for his yearly physical. Doctor says, 200 cholesterol, too high. I want you to go back on that Lipitor. And he said, I'm not going to go on that. I nearly went mad on that. And the doctor said, that's very rare. Why did the doctor say that? Because the pharmaceutical companies tell him this is very rare. He said, well, go on half dose. He said, all right, I'll go on half dose. Why? Because of fear. He doesn't want to die of a heart attack. 6 weeks later, his wife found him out in the garden. He didn't know who he was, she was, where he was. Stopped the Lipitor, and within 48 hours, his mind is clear again. So what he did is he wrote this story on the social media. Within hours, thousands of hits. The same thing happened to me. This is Lipitor. This is the pharmaceutical company's wonder child. Why is it their wonder child? Because they've made billions. Did you hear that? Billions. And how many people have been diagnosed with dementia and Alzheimer's who are on that drug? I was in New Zealand. I was giving meetings a few years ago. I gave this lecture on Tuesday night. On Thursday night, 48 hours later, a couple came to me. They were in their 80s, and the lady was very, very shy and quiet, and the man said to me, my wife has been on Lipitor for 10 years. He said, she's now been diagnosed with dementia. He said, it's getting very difficult. I wake in the night and she's gone. I go looking for her. She's walking down the main road with no clothes on. He said, we find she leaves the oven on, the iron on. He said, it's been so difficult. He said, we made the very, very hard decision to put her into aged care because we can't watch her 24 hours a day. We came to your lecture. We heard what you said. She stopped the Lipitor immediately. It's 48 hours later. We've got my wife back. We've got her back. He said, and he had tears in his eyes. He said, she's not going into the aged care facility. How many are in that state? I think when Jesus comes and there's a judgment day, the pharmaceutical company are going to have to answer for a lot. Yes. Yes. And that's why you're the doctor. And don't let anyone pressure you through fear to take certain medications. You can Google these medications. You can have a look for yourself at the side effects. Once you implement these simple laws of health, once the body starts going back into its proper balance and starts working well, no matter your age, you will discover that life can be good. It can be very good. And many people are not getting the most out of their life because of sickness and because of fear. Jesus said in John 10:10, he said, I have come that they might have life, but that they might have life more abundantly. Life should be good. It should be very good. What I wanted to show you tonight was the truth on cardiovascular disease. And Dr. Malcolm Kendrick is not the only doctor that believes that it is not cholesterol that causes heart disease, it's clotting. And why is the clotting there? Because of damage. And why is the damage there? Because of the environmental poisons we're exposed to. He is not alone, but oh dear, has he been attacked. He's been attacked severely. In fact, the last attack he took it to court and he won. In fact, because he's a British doctor, the newspapers, they probably say much about him the way they say it about me. But God's government is a government of freedom, and freedom's based on free choice. And I saw that 45-year-old woman that came from London that had had the stroke, that was on all this medication. When she heard this, she picked it all up and she threw it straight in the bin. She said, thank you, I am now free. She is free because she knows why she had the stroke, and she knows how to prevent it and what she can do to get the most out of life. We are going to do some questions and answers now.
Just swap your batteries over. I think they are starting to fade a little bit. Just on this side. I'm about at my limit for tonight.
Oh yeah.
I'll try them. I'll get them tomorrow.
Okay, cool.
I don't know. Get these ones to be sure. Good evening, everyone. Am I on? All right, I had to filter out a few because there were a lot of repeats, and this is about what we can get through in an hour. So, we'll start. Is it beneficial to use honey in your eyes for healing?
I'm not sure on honey. It's worth a try.
What are your thoughts on Dr. Brian Ardis and his claims on the benefits of nicotine?
I don't agree with using nicotine. I think there are many other things that can be used instead of nicotine because nicotine is an addictive substance.
How do you get rid of toenail fungus?
Go on the antifungal diet, stage 1, because what's happening in the toenails is an indication of the presence of fungus in the body. And you can also put some essential oils on the toes. If you put oregano essential oil on the toenail, after about a week, you will have eaten your toenail out. Now, not everyone wants to do that. So what you can do is you can dilute the oregano oil with a little coconut oil.
With the advent of the internet, pornography is so easily accessible. How damaging do you feel it is to the mind and body?
It's incredibly damaged to the mind and body because what happens in the mind affects the whole body. And I think what's really important, on Saturday morning I'll be looking at the mind and the body connection, but pornography is incredibly dangerous.
Will a mouldy home give you cancer?
It certainly can.
Will a mouldy home give you cancer? How to detox from Roundup, glyphosate.
Glyphosate directly affects the hormones of the plant and so the hormones of the body. And tomorrow morning I'm so excited that I've been given 2 lectures on hormones. So I'll be exploring that in great detail.
What to do about a condition which is excess sweating?
Now what medically they can do is they can start killing off with a diathermy needle, sealing off your sweat glands. I do not suggest that. I think if you are a person that is inherited the ability to perspire more than others, I guess you're just going to change your clothes a lot and have several showers.
Can you please speak about the epidemic of thyroid issues and hair loss?
We'll be talking about that tomorrow when we talk about hormones, because both thyroid and hair loss have a hormone factor.
How do I get off my thyroid medicine?
In my book, Sustain Me, I have a chapter on the thyroid, and I show all the things that are necessary for optimum thyroid function. Our office manager at Misty Mountain Health Retreat, her name is Robin, she was on thyroid meds for I think about 15 years. She's not on them anymore. She implemented the simple needs principles, and she also balanced her hormones. That's important, as we'll see tomorrow. And slowly, little by little, once you implement everything that is necessary to implement for optimum thyroid function, a person can start to take the medication every second day for a month, and if everything is going well, they can start to take it every third day for another month, and just listen to the body and manage it like that.
Is there any herbs to relieve Raynaud's?
Yeah,
Raynaud's
see, Raynaud's is just a name given to cold feet and hands. And I find people with cold feet and hands, the feet and the hands have been allowed to be cold for many years, and now they're in the habit of being cold. So you just...
Pepper works beautifully for that.
Yeah, so you just got to warm them up, and wearing cayenne pepper compresses on the bottom of the feet, maybe every second or third night, will bring feeling there. It's also a common problem when people are wearing nylon polyester, because it does not keep you warm. So I go to great lengths to keep warm. If I was barefoot right now, I'd have cold feet. But I'm not. I have my woolen socks on and my woolen leggings and my leather boots, and I am warm. So it's just keeping the extremities warm and exercise. And when you exercise, make sure you are covered well.
Do you think there's a link between leaky gut and Graves' disease?
Oh, there may be, but Graves' disease is a problem with the thyroid, and if the gut's not working well, that can certainly affect every part of the body.
What to do if your bilirubin is high?
How do you know it's high? Have a blood test, don't have the blood test. But
Support your liver.
bilirubin is an indication high in the liver, so support the liver with liver herbs.
I've had a full hysterectomy. Are there any special actions or foods I should take to compensate?
Yes, it's important to assess why the uterus was taken out. Maybe it had growths in it, maybe there was heavy bleeding, and that is all due to a hormonal imbalance. So even though the uterus has been taken out, the cause was never ascertained, and the cause is a hormonal imbalance.
I have a blocked carotid artery. Is there any way to break it up? I think we just covered this.
Yes, we did, but you can also rub castor oil. The carotid artery is in the neck.
I have found that antibiotics will take away your gut feeling. What is your opinion on this?
Gut feeling.
To know whether something's good or not by your gut, your instinct.
I know that antibiotics can certainly kill off gut flora.
What are your thoughts on coffee enemas for serious diseases?
They've been used for many years. Max Gerson, who had a very effective program for helping conquer cancer, used coffee enemas. If you're going to use coffee, that is the best way to use it.
Friend has lung problems. He's been on a ventilator. They switched to a tracheos, temporary lung support. Besides castor oils, what will help?
I guess we'd need to know why that happened. Maybe they're a smoker, but I've met some people who've got very bad lungs because their parents smoked, maybe breathing in chemicals. But it's difficult when those little alveoli that I drew up there are destroyed. They do not regrow. But you can strengthen what remains.
Any tips to help someone with pneumonia?
Breathe through the nose and make sure you're breathing fresh air. You can do castor oil compresses on the chest. And in my book, Sustain Me, I have a chapter on respiratory where I list some herbs that help with the lungs.
Recently, I've experienced a loud bursting and popping sound in my ears right before falling asleep. My head pops off the pillow, it's so loud.
That's an interesting one. I'm not sure why that would be.
Can you tighten loose skin from severe weight gain to a big weight loss, and of course pregnancy?
Exercise, because what exercise does increases the circulation of the blood to the skin, and that strengthens the skin.
What do you suggest to treat varicose veins?
In my book, Sustain Me, I have a chapter called Lovely Legs, and I talk about varicose veins. Varicose veins often has an inherited factor. The person with varicose veins, they should not be on their feet for long periods. They have to be very careful of footwear, making sure they have well-fitting, healthy footwear. Best exercise is rebounding or exercise bike, because we have a second heart, and that is the calf muscle. And the calf muscle is what massages or moves the venous system. The arterial system comes away from the heart, the venous system back to the heart. So just up and down like this, it's just causing those calf muscles to move. It helps. So there's a whole lot of bits and pieces you can do, which is outlined in my book.
What about night leg aches? After about 4 hours of sleep, I wake up with leg aches, not cramps.
Okay, so I would question again that person's job. Are they on their feet all day? What is the footwear like? Also, exercising the legs through the day helps to have them relaxed at night. And again, the best leg exercises are exercise bikes, rebounding.
What exercises do you do in the morning?
Well, at the moment, because the roads have lots of cars and it's very wet out there, I'm rebounding and doing push-ups.
Before or after breakfast?
Before.
Do you do it every day?
I do. When I'm at home or in other places, I usually walk. I like finding a hill so I can walk or run up the hill to get high intensity.
Do you have a suggestion for healing a birthmark?
You can try castor oil.
What do you think about the cutting of hair to be tested to determine your health?
Well, you can do hair analysis tests that will give an indication of heavy metals in your body and mineral analysis in your body.
Ridges on your fingernails, what does it mean?
Ridges on the fingernails are usually an indication that the colon is not working as well as it should.
Your hair is beautiful, not very much grey. Can grey hair be reversed with black sesame seeds?
Oh, you can try it. It's high in antioxidants. My father died at 92 and he had black hair with a light sprinkling of grey. My mother died at 51 with brown hair, so I have genes from both sides not to have grey hair.
My biological father had a lot of grey hair, and we're all waiting to see who got which genes. We're advised 8 hours of work, 8 hours of play, and 8 hours of sleep. As an adult, is it beneficial to nap? What length of time and what time of day?
I think it's very beneficial to nap, as long as it doesn't interfere with your nighttime sleep. I think if you have a nap, it should be late morning or early afternoon. If you have a nap in the day and you can't sleep at night, maybe you shouldn't have a nap in the day. So you test it for yourself.
I've had several MRAs and they found a bony growth. What could it be? I'm assuming calcification. What can be done?
Where is it?
In the brain.
Well, I would look at, is there symptoms of a problem? And if it's a bony growth in an area, you know the area, you can put castor oil on it.
It also showed some inflammation in the brain. Could this be a factor behind my memory issues?
Maybe.
Do you think it's wise to try and get a 74-year-old man off 3 high blood pressure meds? And if so, how do you recommend going about it?
Well, we heard all about it tonight. The first thing I always suggest is implementing the laws, starting exercise, starting to drink more water, get the right salt, eating most of the food at breakfast and lunch, going to bed earlier, and then what we have found is the blood pressure starts to come down, then you can start reducing the medication.
If you stop a pharmaceutical medication that you've been on for a while, will charcoal help pull out the toxins from the medication? If so, how much, how long?
You could try that. You might take a teaspoon before you go to bed at night.
What are your thoughts on using black salve?
I think black salve is very effective for burning out skin cancers. We've applied it hundreds of times at our retreat and burnt out lots of little skin cancers. In my book, Sustain Me, I have a chapter on the skin where I show you the quickest way to burn out a skin cancer is black salve or cansema. Usually you can cause it to fall out within 10 days after application. And then I have another way that might take a couple of months, and that's oregano oil. And then I have another suggestion is castor oil, but that might take 6 months. So it's all in my book.
What are your thoughts on sunscreen?
I think it's terrible stuff. It's chemicals. And our skin has millions of little mouths, and it absorbs. You put the sunscreen on your skin, then your skin's absorbing those chemicals.
Natural remedies for anxiety?
Stimulating your parasympathetic nervous system, which is deep breathing through the nose. See, when you breathe through your mouth, high chest, like this, it stimulates your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight and flight. So just changing breath work. And also taking a crystal of Celtic salt and a glass of water, often that is enough to calm. But tomorrow when we look at hormones, you will see that a hormonal imbalance can cause anxiety.
What are your thoughts on yearly mammograms?
I think they should be outlawed. Amen. Outlawed. In fact, one lady described the mammogram like this. She said a lady takes off her top, she lies on the highway with her breast on the road, and a semi-trailer runs over it. That's what this lady said. But what it... Okay, well, one lady said that her description of a mammogram was this: a lady takes up her top, allows her breast on the highway, and the semi-trailer runs over it. It's actually very damaging practice, is mammograms. But what if you find a lump? Well, then you'll listen to tomorrow's lecture, how to balance the hormones and apply castor oil compresses.
Avocado oil, is it good for us?
If it's cold pressed.
We get raw milk from a local farm to make yogurt.
I think that if you are one that's got the genes that can handle dairy and it's raw milk and it's yogurt, it's probably the better way to have it.
If Atkins has so many benefits, why is plant-based better?
Because Atkins used a lot of meat, and it's very difficult to buy safe meat today. Dogs and cats' gastrointestinal tract is very short, it's in and out quick. Humans, it's very long, and when meat breaks down, it putrefies. Very difficult to get a safe meat today.
I'm in my 40s and I've never had trouble with milk or ice cream. All of a sudden I have a reaction right after ingestion.
Well, it's time to stop. The body's got to the point where it says, no more, thank you very much.
Hot or cold water throughout the day, and why?
I just drink body temperature water, because if you drink very cold water, it'll go into your stomach and it has to stay there and get warm until it can go to the rest of the body. Hot water, that can be nice in very cold weather, but your mouth is your guide. If it burns your mouth, it's going to burn your stomach.
What do you think about hydrogen water?
Hydrogen water is alkaline water. I think that it certainly can be beneficial, but don't drink it near your meal because it'll stop your stomach acid.
My son needs an iron infusion. Is there anything else he can take besides molasses?
In my book, Sustain Me, I have a section on anemia. And I show that what you have to find out is the cause of the anemia. With many women, it's heavy blood loss, so they balance the hormones can remedy that. But low hydrochloric acid can also be a cause of anemia because iron is bound up in food and it needs acid to release it from the food. So if the hydrochloric acid's low, then the person can't access the iron in their food. So I would look at why he has low iron.
In this area, we are seeing a significant amount of infants and toddlers with oral ties. What causes this?
These are tongue ties. It can be little bits of skin connecting the lip and the tongue. And when I was having babies, I never heard of it, never saw it, none of my friends had it. It's caused from folic acid. And folic acid is toxic. Folic acid interferes with the development of fascia in the body. Fascia is the thin balloon type material that is around every organ, every muscle in the body. And what folic acid does, it interferes with the development of it, and that's what causes these bits of skin to grow in the mouth. Women are told to take folic acid in pregnancy, am I right? Yes. But they should not. What women need is folate. And folate is found in all your green vegetables. That's what I had when I was pregnant. I was pregnant or breastfeeding non-stop for 14 years, but I ate a lot of greens out of the garden. They're also putting folic acid on bread today, like wheat grain. So people are getting it also by eating the high carbohydrate diet. Hydrochloric acid releases iron from food. If your hydrochloric acid is low, you can't get the iron out of your food.
Do you think stevia and xylitol are safe?
Yes. Folic acid isn't.
How long before bed should you stop eating?
Well, ideally, you should stop eating a few hours before you go to bed. If it's 1 hour to bedtime and you happen to be very hungry, something like a banana or an avocado or a small bowl of soup, you could go to bed on that. But if you're having a meal, ideally you leave a few hours.
Do you see any problem with using artificial light to be able to have fresh indoor herbs to cook with over the dark winter months?
I guess that'd be okay. I don't live in dark winter months, so I don't know.
Thoughts on raw milk? I think we covered.
Well, with some people, if it's in your genes, if you're the daughter of a 5th generation dairy farmer and it's raw, you can probably handle it. I'm not. I've never been able to handle milk. It's obviously not in my genetics, but I leave it up to the person.
Fastest, most effective way to alkalise the body?
Carrot, celery and apple juice. And drinking lots of water. 80% carrot, 10% apple, 10% celery. That's a very alkalising vegetable juice to take.
What are your thoughts on electrolytes?
Electrolytes, Celtic salt's full of them. So to get electrolytes, just take a crystal of Celtic salt before every glass of water. You're getting nice electrolytes.
Why do you choose a plant-based diet?
I use a plant-based diet because I believe it is a superior diet. When meat breaks down in the body, it breaks down so that when it's metabolised, that's only 58% can be burnt as fuel. That's a 42% waste. And as I'll show tomorrow evening when I look at cancer, Dr. Colin Campbell, he could turn cancer cells on and off by the amount of meat and dairy that he was giving the rats when he was testing on the rats. I find that a plant-based diet is a cleaner diet. It's the diet that God gave Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And I know in heaven there'll be no meat to eat, because to eat meat you have to have a death.
There are so many strains of bacteria in probiotics. Which are the most important?
Well, the two permanent are Lactobacillus acidophilus and bifidus bacterium, but all the others basically come from those two main ones. So you don't have to concentrate on which is the best. Eating cultured food, you'll get a nice amount.
Is it beneficial to swallow watermelon seeds?
Doesn't hurt.
Drinking out of copper, what do you think?
I think copper pipes are certainly superior to lead, and it's only a few years ago they started to eliminate the lead pipes. Do you know, they used to be lead in fuel, and that was a big contributing factor to heart disease because that lead got into the blood vessels and started damaging the wall. But copper pipes are only usually used for the hot water, I think. I'm not a...
Copper water bottles and copper cookware.
Ah, yes, the copper, yes, it is reported to be beneficial.
What is phytic acid? Can you eat too much of it while you're eating nuts and seeds? Do you recommend soaking foods high in phytic acid?
Well, there's one food that's incredibly high in phytic acid, and no one talks about it, and that is wheat. But when you soak your legumes and rinse them very well, bring them to the boil and rinse them again, you get rid of the phytic acid. There's been information coming out that phytic acid locks up minerals in the body, but there's also information that phytic acid helps to fight cancer.
Can eating raw garlic daily ever be too much of a good thing?
Well, your body will let you know.
When you eat walnuts, I've read they contain anti-nutrients, and soaking them and then drying them removes them. Do you recommend this? And is roasting nuts good?
You'd have to eat a bucket of walnuts a day to get anti-nutrients that have any negative effect on the body. You can soak them and dehydrate them, but I do think that you lose the nice strong flavour. What was the last one?
Can you roast them?
Can you roast them? We don't usually roast nuts because when you roast nuts, when you heat the oils, you do damage the oils and they can become rancid.
Should we be eating our vegetables at a different time from our fruits?
Ideally, yes, because fruits and vegetables take different enzymes to break them down. At our retreat, we serve fruit at breakfast, and at lunchtime we serve the vegetables.
Are eggs high in cholesterol, and can they be eaten every day?
Yes, they are high in cholesterol, but as we've looked at today, cholesterol's not a problem. If a person eats eggs, they must be organic. And yes, if they can get healthy eggs, not a problem to eat them daily.
Why lemon juice and not apple cider vinegar?
Apple cider vinegar is one stage short of alcohol, and also apple cider vinegar has been shown to even interfere with brain cell function. Whereas lemon juice is acid where it should be in the stomach, and when it gets into the tissues, it has an alkaline effect.
If you don't have a gallbladder, what can you do to keep healthy?
Your body will tell you what you can and you can't eat. But remember, even if the gallbladder's gone, the liver is what makes the bile.
Regarding the gallbladder, if symptoms are excruciating abdominal pain 7 to 12 hours after eating, with pain most intense in the upper right quadrant, what can be the probable cause? And can you heal a gallbladder?
Well, you certainly can heal a gallbladder. And in my book, Sustain Me, and also in my book, Self-Heal by Design, I have liver gallbladder cleansers that can be done. So if that sort of pain is being experienced, I would seriously have a look at what was in the meal. But usually the meal has been digested within 5-6 hours. So you just need to investigate all the different things around that pain.
What relief methods are there for gas after eating or drinking? I have celiac disease.
So celiacs cannot handle any wheat at all. So my suggestion is to eat only the simple needs breads. And sometimes gas can be a result of low hydrochloric acid, so I would look at boosting hydrochloric acid consumption.
How to treat and prevent UTIs.
Drinking lots of water, even up to 4 or 5 litres of water a day, lots and lots of water. And D-mannose. D-mannose is concentrated cranberry extract. And I know one girl, she would take a teaspoon of this D-mannose every half hour until the stinging stopped, and then 4 times a day until all the symptoms are gone. Antibiotics are the worst thing to take for a urinary tract infection. It might ease it, but it creates the environment for the next UTI.
I've had a pain since 2018 in the middle of my stomach, where my ribs end. It's sharp and it makes me nauseous. I've had scans and there's nothing found except inflammation.
What I would do is make a diary and write down what you eat and write down when the pain comes, and you should be able to link some of the things that are causing it. It wouldn't hurt to go 1 or 2 days just on juices and see what the pain's like then, if that makes it go away. Because your body can tell you what no man can tell you. So it's just trying different things, and often you can start to determine what the causative factors may be.
My aunt gets very bloated and severely constipated. Nothing works.
Well, in my book, Sustain Me, I have a chapter on the colon which shows what you can do for constipation. Castor oil compresses, taking the herbs, can certainly help get the colon working.
What do you recommend for a healthy pregnancy at 3 months and delivery? And would you recommend acupuncture to assist in inducing labour?
There's no need to induce labour. The baby will come when it's ready. In fact, most of my babies were 10 days, 2 weeks late. I think Jessica was about 2 weeks late. The baby will come when it's ready. And keeping to the Sustain Me principles is the best way to prepare. And squatting. I suggest that the lady squat every day for about 10 minutes so that when she goes to have her baby, the squatting position will help that baby come out with much greater ease.
Blood when passing stool with extreme constipation. Is slippery elm and colon tea okay to take while pregnant and breastfeeding?
Yes, it is. Usually with constipation, what's necessary is the colon tea. And I would like to suggest that the bleeding, because it's red, it's from hemorrhoid.
Is it okay to take oregano while pregnant and breastfeeding for killing mould? And is there any herbs that you would suggest not taking while pregnant or breastfeeding?
Not really. It is safe to take.
My 1.5-month-old has had thrush for a couple of weeks now. I've done coconut oil, but I can't seem to get it to go away. What would you suggest?
Most of the time, if the baby's being fed well, baby's being breastfed, and the mother's eating well, it will resolve.
We're done.
Good. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I'll just say a prayer before we go. Father in heaven, thank you so much for what you've taught us today. Thank you so much that you love us. You've given us these incredible bodies with their inbuilt ability to heal. I pray for a blessing on every person here as we travel to our homes and have a great night's sleep. And we thank you for hearing our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.